at this age, but I think by 41 I should have been planning about my retirement because I got another 15 years to go. As long as I have enough money in my EPF, I think it's just good enough.
Pandangan I macam you have to plan macam kena ada business sendiri lah macam kan. Pada I lah, because kalau kita nak tunggu untuk PF je tak cukup sebenarnya.
EPF kalau umur panjang tak cukup lah kot. Mungkin we need to do something lah.
Kalau sekarang ni macam kita tak adalah planning waktu pencen, memang belum plan apa-apalah. Tapi daripada hari pertama saya bekerja, saya memang dah start beli insurans untuk retirement.
I mean, retirement is such a way that financial freedom. So my definition of retirement, right, is like when you get financial freedom, so you can retire anytime, provided your financial freedom, right? Not really like EPF money. I don't think it's enough for your retirement. I mean, of course, when you are young, right, you have to put your efforts and struggle here and there to get a lot of money lah.
In today's day and age, yes, because health is so much better nowadays. Yeah, I think 60, 65 is a good time to retire. I retired when I was 60. I decided 60 is enough. I didn't want also to die in harness. I didn't want to die while working. When you don't plan to retire, that means you don't have reserves. You know, you must have reserves to look after you in your retirement years. And a lot of people don't do that. They don't invest. They depend on the EPF. And sometimes the EPF is really not enough.
Well, the answers that you've just heard are actually replies to three main questions, namely, what are your plans for retirement? Would you want to retire at 55 or 60? And most importantly, is EPF money enough or sufficient to last you through 20 years after retirement? Welcome to our show. I'm Anne Edwards, and with me in the studio to delve further into this topic of preparation for your retirement, right next to me, Datuk Paul Selva, who is FOMCA CEO. Welcome, Datuk, to our studio. Datuk, I understand that you have official records, to say that EPF money is actually not quite sufficient to last someone through that 20 years after retirement. Is that right?
Yes, and now firstly, we need to look at life expectancy. Today's life expectancy is about 75. So if you're retiring at 55, you need 20 years of savings to take you through the next 20 years. And according to EPF's own figures, 72% of those aged 53 have about, on the average of only 50,000. And what is more frightening is 50% of those who withdraw the savings, the money will finish within 5 years. So that means you have 15 years, a long period of time without saving, yes. So this means that it's very important to prepare for retirement and not just depend on EPF money.
What are the avenues, Datuk?
Well, there are several avenues. I mean, first and foremost, you need to understand the aspect of risk as an individual, how much risk you're willing to take. And then, of course, it could be shares, it could be unit trust, it could be property. Recently, the government has introduced what is called the private retirement scheme, which is sort of oversight, the Securities Commission oversee this, So to look at those schemes, because even in those schemes you have higher growth, what we call growth, that means a bit more higher risk than conservative. So when you understand these things, it means that you put aside money, apart from EPF, so that to take you through the golden years.
Right, and through the golden years, but preparation needs to be done from now. And I understand that only 37% of young executives are actually prepared for retirement and the rest are not.
Actually, we have done a survey on young executives, and one of the questions we asked is, how prepared are you? And secondly, the question we asked is, even if you have something, how satisfied are you? And 37% said that only 37% had some plans, and even those who had plans, 60% said that they were not satisfied with what they had, with how their preparation. And this could possibly be because they are only depending on their KWSP, and they feel that when they retire, that money that they earn will not be sufficient to see them through the rest of the years. So this is an area of major concern.
Major concern, and what are we doing about it?
No, I think one of the most important things is, especially with young executives, is education. I think retirement education is lacking. We need to educate. We need to create awareness. We need to provide avenues. I mean, we say EPF is not enough, sure, but what are the avenues and how do we train people to make decisions on this, to understand risks and put the importance of putting money aside. I think the principle is the younger you start, the less you need to put aside. And the later you start in life, then you begin to get worried because of course you have your other expenses, and then you put aside also for retirement.
Right.
If that awareness is there, you put aside little, then the cumulative effect is substantial. And then you can also understand the products, whether it's shares,
So
unit trust.
educate and make them aware.
Educate,
right.
make them aware, and provide them the skills to make decisions. That's very important.
We'll take a short commercial break. We'll hold that thought. We'll be back with Datuk Paul Selva shortly on our show. He is the FOMCA CEO. Stay with us. Preparation for retirement. In the studio with us is Datuk Paul Selva, who is CEO of FOMCA. Datuk was sharing with us some of the major concerns of young executives, especially, who are mainly not prepared or they've not given a single thought. Now, there are a lot of things that can be done, like you said, education and awareness about some of the avenues apart from EPF money that people can save in. How soon do they need to start planning, Datuk? Can you tell us?
I think the earlier you start, the less you need to put aside. And secondly, I think the basic question that you need to ask yourself is, how much do you need? And it's actually quite a simple question, because you need to see, okay, what is the income that you expect after retirement? Say you say 1,500 or 2,000, or if you think it's 800, then you just times that by 12 and you times that by 20. Now that is the minimum amount of money you need. So when you start thinking like that, say you suddenly need about $500,000 or $750,000, then you need to decide how do you generate that kind of income.
Right.
When you retire, to have that money aside. So unless you start thinking about it, you start planning it, then you'll start looking at the options. I mean, you might want to put a bit of your money on some growth, which is slightly higher risk, someone very conservative because you're worried, So the first thing is the
awareness. Apart from savings also, Datuk, we were talking to people who say that maybe they should start their own business or start doing some kind of side business even while they're working. This is to prepare them for their retirement. What do you think?
No, I think business itself carries risks. So even if you're doing business, one of the problems with EPF is it only caters for those who are working in the formal sector. If you're in the informal sector, you don't really have. So if you're doing business, you still need to think of retirement. In fact, you need to think of retirement more, because there's no mandatory system on you to put money aside. Now that was one of the ideas that the government came out with the private retirement scheme. It's voluntary. So if you're in a business sector, you're running your own business, you need to be more cautious, because there is nothing protecting you. There's no social safety net for you, at least not mandatory. With this, then you really need to think of putting money certain aside from your normal risk of your business.
Okay. So before we wrap up the show, most importantly also is the fact that we've got people who will be retiring at 55, and also the rest will be retiring at 60 for the next half of the year. Which do you think is actually something that people would choose? 55, 60, 60, they have a bit more money, So what do you think?
And some even say life begins at 60. So what I'm saying is, nowadays, even at 60, people are fully active, mentally, physically.
Lifespan is longer.
Lifespan is longer, and you are still fully functional. I mean, so what happens? The person retires. I mean, if the person has put money aside and he has plans after retirement, fine. But if he has not plans, one is of course money. The other thing is, how do you expect to spend the rest 20 years?
Yes.
So you need to think of your lifestyle also. You need to think also that probably you'll be having more health issues. How do you take care of insurance? How do you occupy your time? For maybe 30 to 40 years, you woke up in the morning and went to work. Now you wake up, there's nowhere to go.
So you would champion 60?
No, I would say the later the better. Of course, the employee always has an option, but because of our activeness, because of our health, because you're still fully, in many countries it's beyond 60, because we feel that these people can still contribute. And of course, people want to contribute. I mean, that's part of So I would say the later the better. Of course, 60 for now, I would fully support 60.
Okay, thank you so much, Datuk, for giving your very interesting take. And that was Datuk Paul Selva, who is FOMCA CEO. He was commenting on preparation for retirement, and we hope this will give us some thought to educate ourselves and also to be aware of some of the other avenues apart from EPF for us to save for retirement. I'm Annette Bus. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye-bye.